Hey everybody, it's Steve. Sorry, I'm running a little bit late here today. Time to get a haircut, I guess. Okay, so we're going to stick to the pattern that Thursdays are brokerage training. And what I want to cover for today is, first of all, what you need to do for your listings to make a listing, how you search for, we have the expired listing videos already done, how you search for comps on a property using the MLS, and also using a property that I just walked, how we evaluate values in a rental. Now, understand, here's the distinction I want to be very clear with everybody on, is that as agents, we will list a property for whatever the client wants. All we're here to do is give a little bit of advice as such of what the property might, what we suggest, basically, is all we're doing. So, for example, when we're comping a property, because I happen to have a comp setup open here, I chose for this particular comp, I said I'm looking for land. That's how I ended up in the quick search. So up here, quick search, and it'll default to residential, it'll default to Scranton board. So we always want to comp all boards. And it depends. Are you comping an address? If you're comping an address, you put in a near address here. So you say 108 Grove. It'll come up with the property. Or you can search by template and draw a circle and what does land cost in drums. You can go the other way, but usually you're saying this. You're saying, hey, here's the property. And I'm going to just go back because I forgot to. So it's also important, by the way, to pend or change the statuses of your various listings. So I'm doing this right now because if I don't, I will forget and I will be in trouble with the board for having forgotten. So I just pended the listing because if not, the board will get mad at me. So I've picked this property. I've clicked map. You see if anybody else has joined. Not yet. And we've drawn a circle out to 2.5 mile. Half mile, 6 months is pretty much where I start with everything. And I always call it half and half, meaning half mile, half year. And I want to know all boards. Think data source, not Luzerne County. Always comp all boards that we've discussed before. And if anyone isn't sure, here's why. We always do all boards. Because in our area, in their wonderful, horribly stupid plan, there's a lot of boards within a very small geographic area. And the reality is I'm a member of the Scranton board. So if I only list it, it shows up only on Scranton board. So if you only search Luzerne County board, because that's where you're a member, you're not going to see my listing. So we always search all boards, and then we add a field of status. And for status, we only care about sold. Remember, expired is what you want to find possible new listing leads. Closed is what you want to get values from. So we have 59 solds. Now this happens to be a multi-unit, so it's not residential. You select this You select your boards first, because when you select your boards, it's going to default back to residential. I want to see how many multifamilies have sold. 16 multifamilies have closed, half mile, half year. And this is kind of where the board goes a little bit woo for multi-searches, because it doesn't have number of units. It doesn't have things like that. Now, I just like to search price down. It's just kind of what I like to search by. You can search by status. You can search by a lot of things. And really, I'm looking for bedrooms, which basically none. But okay, Lehigh Street, Wilkes-Barre. Doesn't really look like my building, but there's 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. I'm a 3-bedroom on one side and a 2-bedroom on the other. So I'm 5 bedrooms. I'm 2.5 baths. Okay. So that's a reasonable comp. I think our value is a little higher than that, but okay. You know, you can also look at square footage. There's another way to do it. You can search by square footage. Say, okay, I'm around 2,000 square feet. There is 195. Yeah, okay, that's 33 square feet. That's a crap load bigger than I am. So that's what you're doing when you're coming up with comps. And you will then say, you'll find one that says, ooh, this looks kind of interestingly similarly sized. Now click here and then show me the detail on it. Double block, separate utilities, 2-bed, 1 bath each side, private driveways. Okay, is that comparable to me? I don't know. Let's go look at some pictures and see what am I comparable to. Yeah, okay, fine. So mine's a little bigger, but this sold for $222. And then you also do this sold for $222. I've got an extra bedroom. I don't have driveways, so one's up, one's down. I also look at when they sold. So this was basically put in for records. They were days on market 0. I want to see the date. It sold in February of 25. Okay, so a bit of a while ago, but not too bad. Market hasn't really gone down in that time. So, okay, so you know what? 2.25, about what I should sell mine for. And I just happen to sell a double in Wilkes-Barre for 2.25 as well, less than a mile away from this property. So, okay, so 2.25 is my number. Now, the other thing we do, and this is the other way to look at a math problem for real estate, it's a rental math problem. And we have a tool for this. I'm going to make this up to walk you through it, but we have tools for this. So rent, income 2, if there is one, like a laundry. So we'll make it total income annual. MVM, tax, insurance, sewer, landlord, utilities. Expenses total, NOI, net operating income. So total income, let's say 14,400. Let's say 2,400 a month. You annualize that. Now we're going to show this as here, and this is a percentage. 10% maintenance, vacancy management. Right now, we do this as 0 for right now. Taxes 2,500, insurance 1,600. I can help you with these, but roughly, they should know their taxes. They might know their insurance. If not, it's $800 a unit. There's my sewer number. In this particular building, 0 landlord utilities. B4, B7 equals this minus this minus B8. All right, so now you notice if I add a 10% maintenance vacancy management, my numbers go down. Now there's a couple of ways, but we'll just use cap rate as a quick one. If the seller wants, if the buyer wants 10 cap, the building's worth $237,000. It's literally that divided by 0.1. Now, if we were listing this, we might say, I want to go a little higher. The seller is going to have a number here at some point. You're going to say, hey, I think a lot of buyers will buy you at 230. I think there's also a number of buyers will buy you at 300. And this is where you look at the comps and say, okay, a 2-unit has sold for 225, a 2-unit has sold for 190. All right, so we're probably pushing it at this point. You know, I think you'll probably trade around 210 to 220. We list for 235, we're there. Now, I personally do 30% maintenance vacancy management, which instantly drops my building value down because I pay my manager and whatever. So for me, I'm buying it more like this. So this is how, when we're advising our clients, and you have our tools to figure this out, saying, hey, listen, I'm seeing solds in this number. I'm seeing an income valuation in this number. So I'm seeing solds in the number of, what do we say, 225 over here? 222, okay. And I'm seeing an income valuation around 230. Okay, so kind of in the same ballpark. So hey guys, why don't we list at 235? You might sell based on this information at 220. You might sell at 195. Whatever. But somewhere in that range. So okay, so this is how you advise a client as to what the comparable values are. You're then going to look, and then what you're going to do is you're going to do your forms for your sale, for your listing. You guys, and mine is just broken, and I don't know why, but you guys can do zip forms right from here. For some reason, for me, it takes me to a broken account, and I don't know why. So I just do it this way. And you should have, if you have not, set up transaction templates, which we will cover separately, probably on this call, because I've got so many new agents. But we go in here, and I already have this package set. This is my transaction template. And you need listing contract inclusive right to sell, disclosure statement, lead hazard statement, consumer notice, and seller estimated closing costs. Those are your important ones. So you need listing contract. And I don't know why they give you checkboxes, because it never lets you do checkboxes. And you fill this in. I opened up an old one, so it shows me as eXp Realty. And you go through here and you fill this in, and you fill in those other documents I told you. Seller property disclosure statement, lead hazards, seller's estimated cost, consumer notice. And you get your client to sign that. And then we'll prepare to do a listing. And what you do when you do a listing is, when you have all your stuff together, is you go here to add listing. And literally it's fill in the blanks. Residential income, land, blah, blah, blah. Address, main fields, which will change depending on your previous answers. So go left to right on these categories, because depending on the type of property you pick, your fields change, whatever. You go through the stuff in red has to be answered. Now, the beautiful trick here is you look for the previous listing of the property. And if the previous listing has probably measured all the rooms, yes, you should measure the rooms, but if you didn't, like I don't, you do that. You can steal the information from the previous listing, is what I'm saying. Can't steal their pictures, can't steal their write-ups, can't steal things that are copywritten to the other broker. But physical realities, PIN numbers, school district, zoning, you should verify it all, because they can change. Zoning especially can change. PIN numbers usually don't. But you do that. And you go through and answer all of the questions. If you get to a point and you can't fill in all the red stuff, you can either take some guesses and fix it later, a little dangerous, or you can save incomplete listing. I mean, if you put in a guess at the tax amount and then in the private remarks, which is somewhere in here, I forget what they are. You can say, these things were estimated. Taxes were estimated. Lot size was estimated. Whatever so you're telling the other broker, hey, listen, I didn't have this at my fingertips. I couldn't quite put my hands on it. Da, 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 da. So you fill it in. You then will save, add listing when you get it done. It won't let you. If you hit now, 1 billion errors have been found. And the beautiful thing is it will take you to the errors one by one. It'll take it all. Eventually you save it, and then you'll add your pictures to it, which I'll show you under change listing. You go into a listing. You can add photos, floor plans, documents, videos, virtual stores, whatever, fine, all that crap. You can get at it. So this is kind of this is basically how you do a quick setup. I don't know, Ryan kind of went away. Okay, fine. This is how you kind of do a quick setup for finding out what a listing is worth. And then getting the listing contract paperwork done. You're going to need a DocuSign account attached to your system, which Scranton Board gives great discounts on DocuSigns. So you want to be there. And the other, now here's where you're going to be in a situation for where it's not going to go quite simply for you. But by meaning your comps are not going to be simple. Here's an example property that I'm looking at. Now this is several parcels, which also makes it fun. But this is a property I'm considering buying. And in order to value the land and so all that's left of this property is this building here. And this is a proposed build out of the actual property. So how do we value this? Literally this conversation my partner and I are having right now. We have a dozen-ish buildable lots back here, and those buildable lots in Drums are sold at $5,000, whatever. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Double it's probably 70,000, plus that. So, all right, 100,000. Boom. My empty land, if sold as dirt, would be worth 100,000. If when I sell it, it's going to be worth more because I'm going to have to pour money into making this road happen. But right now, as vacant land, if there was a street here, let me try to explain it better. If all these lots were already lined up along a road, they're selling between $5,000 and $10,000 a lot. So I have 11 lots. It's worth $110,000. Fine. Then I have this property here, worth another, depending, but another $100,000. Okay, so I have 100,000 out here, and I have 100,000 here, and then I have a building. It's gutted, but it's there. It's 12,000 square feet. What's that worth? Both as a comparable and as a rental value. I'm going to turn this into 10 rentals at $1,200 a month. What does that look like? So I've got, okay, and I'm just going to use round numbers. 100, so 100, 200, call that another 100 back there, 300. Plus I've got this building. So all of a sudden it's worth 200 because this is a $100,000 lot. This is a $100,000 lot with a $100,000 building. So 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's how we value unusual things. And that is probably going to mean several searches within the system. You're going to go here and you're going to look at property type, edit search, and you're going to change your property type from multifamily to single to land to whatever else you're doing, basically. So you're going to maybe it's change your search template to residential income. Change your search template to land. Crawl through it all. You're also going to look at physical realities of where the property is located, what's around it. So you're going to go to Google Maps, this even before you even go to the property. Am I surrounded by industrial land? Am I the only residence surrounded by, I don't know, a junkyard? Or in the case of this property, a very major developer has bought this and they're going to put $500,000 houses. So whatever the hell I do here, this is going to increase my value. So you're looking at those kinds of things. And you're bringing all this to your client and saying, oh, blah, blah, blah. But most of the time in units 1, 2, 3, and 4, you are looking strictly at the game of what have similar things sold for in the neighborhood. Closed sales. So that's really all you're looking for when you're doing comps. And the only purpose in this thing was to give a tour of how to comp a property, how to do the search, and how to do the documents. And kind of some things to think about when you end up in unusual situations. For example, if you had waterfront, well, then your only comparables are things that are waterfront. If you have something in an HOA, you want to keep your comparables not only into an HOA, but that HOA. Case in point, you have Big Bear, I think it's called, out in Gouldsboro. They're a pretty comfortable community in terms of quality. They have some great amenities, couple lakes, couple pools, and they're fairly well regarded as a place to live. As opposed to another Pocono community that's a very large group of communities, PCP. And I know nothing about this. I mean, I've done some deals there, and from what I've heard about PCPs, some of their parks are like wonderful and gated and well run, and some of them have had some issues over the years. So, okay, which PCP are you? And you also have to realize that some buyers love HOAs in communities. Some buyers are like, oh, I'll take a community, I won't take an HOA. HOAs have a bad rep because sometimes they have stupid rules. Your grass has to be between 3.5 and 3.7 inches or you get a violation. It's just, we've all heard the stories. And so a house outside of the HOA might have a higher or lower value than the house inside the HOA. Maybe whatever. Is it the community we're going to build? If I buy this, we're not going to have pools. We're not going to have gatehouses. We're not going to have any of that crap. So we don't have all the amenities. We're not equivalent. So you got to look at what's equivalent, is what I'm getting at. But at the end of the day, we're puppies, or puppets rather. We're parrots. We do whatever our client wants. And I'll finish with this one story. This goes back to the dark ages, like 2016. I was a brand new agent, and I wasn't even really caring about being an agent. But I started to look for listings, and I got this guy who wanted to list his property. And I told him, I said, look, I said, I'll buy you for 120. I think we could sell it for 140, 150. And he's like, well, I want $640,000. And I turned him away. I said, sir, if we're that, I said, if we were somewhere reasonable, okay, fine. But I said, I'm not going to lie to you. And my broker got mad at me. I'm like, why? He's like, you gave him best advice. Yes, I did. He's like, then do what he wants. I said, what do you mean? He's like, don't lose the listing. Someone's going to take the listing and get the sale eventually. It'll eventually sell. But he said, don't lose the listing. Just, you've been honest with him. You told him what he needed to know. And at this point, look at it as a billboard. Like, what do you mean? That your sign in front of that property is a billboard for you. And if he's priced it that absurdly, you've got a billboard for a year. So do a 1-year contract, you've got a billboard for a year. So we more or less do whatever our clients tell us. We don't have to. We are not. Okay, so if we sign the listing agreement that we have to do what we agreed. But if they don't want that to happen, then no. Like I had a client come to me, he had a normal house, and he's like, I want a 90-day contract, I want 1% commission, and I want to list it for this absurdly high number. And I said, I'm not your guy. Well, why? I'm not doing crap for a 90-day contract. Okay. I'm not going out there taking pictures, measurements, yada, yada, going through all that effort and then losing you in 91 days. No. Number two, 1%. I'm not working for that number. 1% of $100,000, I'm not getting out of bed for, that I have to share with my broker. I'm not getting out of bed for. It's just, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm not legally allowed to tell you what you have to do. I'm just telling you what I won't do. And I said, you want 1.2 whatever million dollars for this property that's worth 120,000. You want to give me a year's contract, I'll play the billboard game. But otherwise, pass. You, along with me, under my direction and steering, you run your own business. We can't tell them they're wrong. We can tell them this is not a relationship for us. That's the distinction. That's the difference. And that's what I have for today. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.